Greetings, guys, and welcome back to Onion Hall. Today we'll be continuing our discussion on plague heart health and damage percentages of different offensive measures, but we'll be taking things a step further. Presenting today is my TA Mascara and Apprentice Junior.
Good day, guys. Now, today's discussion will be looking at a couple more offensive measures and their damage. Additionally, we'll attempt to determine the most cost-efficient offensive measures in the lethal zone. So, let's get into it. Junior?
So, the last time we spoke of plague heart health and damage percentages, I had stated that I would consider covering projectiles as well. Now, I don't plan on demonstrating regular firearms, as that is quite the expenditure of resources, and will take a very long time. However, I decided to cover 50 caliber rounds and the grenade launcher. Just as a bonus, I'll also include the use of heavy weapons, since they can also be an effective means.
Now, London, before you left off from that discussion, you had expressed a level of uncertainty in the numbers you were able to come up with. You weren't sure if plague heart health varies based on the starting amount in a given map.
Well, you know what? That is a good thing to ascertain first. So ever since our previous discussion on hearts, I had switched to a new map, and it had started me off with 24 hearts, which is the lowest I've ever seen the numbers. So naturally, before anything can commence, we have to first establish if there is a difference in heart fatality. So just to quickly check, we'll use the drone strike and soda can bomb combination.
Alright, so we can verify that plague heart health remains consistent, even with a major difference of 12 hearts. So let's move on to the projectiles. How about we start with the B50FG? We'll run the numbers and then attempt to determine what is the most cost-effective method.
So our BFG took 15 rounds, which would imply the same damage as our soda can bombs, which is 6.66666667% damage. But given how our numbers work, it can theoretically do up to 7.1%, because 7.1% multiplied by 14, which is one less than the required amount, will only equal 99.4%, roughly meaning that one more unit would still be required. And as we covered last time, such small percentages can matter when we tested it out near the end of our last plague heart discussion.
Alright, so the next projectile to look at is the grenade launcher. So to my surprise, it required 13 units to destroy the heart, implying that it does, at the very least, 7.69% damage. but we don't know if there's any overcompensating damage.
Correct. The explosions can be doing anywhere between 7.69% and 8.33333%. So to get a better idea of how much damage these are doing, I decided to do an experiment with 2 C4 units, 2 grenades, and a grenade launcher. The C4s and 2 grenades, based on our previous numbers, should give us approximately 91.666667%. If the heart dies after 1 round, then we can verify that it is doing the maximum amount, 8.33333%.
So there was overcompensating damage. Well, that is good to know. So I think we have a few more to cover. There is still the use of heavy melee weapons, and as an honorable mention, there is the flare/firecracker and bloater gas method.
Alright, so for heavy weapons I went with the sledgehammer, as it appears to have the greatest impact, but they should all be rather similar in that regard. So I know there was one regular strike in there, but I highly doubt it had much bearing on the amount of charged strikes required. But it took 7 hits with 1 regular. Now this essentially puts it on a similar level as Thermite, which also required 7 uses. Now I didn't bother with developing a percentage value, as this can vary among weapons, but they can range anywhere from 14.285% to 16.6% with each charged strike.
Fair enough, London. Moving on to the flare/firecrackers and bloater gas, you had stated in the past that they will differ depending on which combination you use. But the flares required 3 gas units and the firecrackers required 4.
Well, I'm glad that we're revisiting this because I figured that I had to be doing something wrong. But anyways, I can confirm that firecrackers and flares can be treated as equals. Flares just last much longer, allowing one to space out their throws with greater ease. But anyway, we know that they typically require 3 uses, so this would imply that they are on the same level as Willy Pete grenades and C4. So I decided to test it out with 2 uses of bloater gas and soda can bombs. So revisiting our numbers again, our soda can bombs are inflicting anywhere between 6.6666667% and 7.1%.
Whoa! And since it only required 2 soda can bombs, then the gas and flares are inflicting anywhere between a massive 42.9% and 45.5%. But to pinpoint this further, you had tested this with thermite, which we know does 14.285% damage. Now, thermite burns for 10 seconds. Depending on when the heart dies, you can determine how much of the 14.285 damage is inflicted.
Excellent reference, Mascara. Now, from the thermite's explosion, the heart died at the 7-second mark, meaning that 70% of the thermite damage was inflicted. So, 14.2857143 multiplied by 0.7, or 70%, equals 10, meaning that the heart only had 10% of remaining vitality, which also means that the 2 gas and flares inflicted 90% damage, or 45% each. Now that we have these out of the way, one of you whose name I can't quite pronounce had asked about efficiency and crafting costs for both Zeds and Plague Hearts. For today's discussion, I'll be focusing on hearts. Other applications will be considered for the future. But anyway, this subsection will be broken down between cost and efficiency.
Well, in the lethal zone, crafting just about anything is less than ideal. Just looking at a single Plague Heart, one would be down 15 units of ammunition and 100 parts using only soda can bombs, or 12 units of ammo and 200 units of crafting parts for pipe bombs. And let's not even get into the other explosives and incendiaries.
Not to mention, the other crafting bits such as scraps of circuitry or cases of chemicals are not as easy to find in the lethal zone, nor are they craftable. Now yes, there are bonuses that can be applied if one has the correct skills. These can mainly be found with chemistry, pathology, and mechanics. Chemistry and munitions mainly helps with ammo crafting and Molotovs and fuel bombs, with an increase in yield. So in my own quest to finding an efficient means of eliminating hearts, I figured quickly that trying to keep up with the crafting requirements, even with bonuses, was not sustainable for 24 plus hearts, including the cost of simply surviving. There are only a few ways to hit hard, and do so at regular intervals with as few skills and or resources as possible.
Well, I think those who have maintained consistent attendance already know one of them, and that is the drone strike and pipe bomb method. Really, any explosive or combustible can be used with the drone strike, considering its damage. But in terms of cost, it only requires 50 crafting parts and 150 influence. This is easily the most unique offensive measure, since it is the only one that requires influence to use. But at such a relatively low cost, it also has a long wait time, especially if morale is low. The cooldown will also take a while unless one has a perk to reduce radio cooldown times.
This is the main downside with the drone strike. Relatively cheap, but it takes time. Personally, I see the cooldown time as a healthy lull in taking on Plague Hearts. So to break down the costs, it would take 50 units of crafting parts, 150 units of influence, plus either 2 pipe bombs, which require 50 crafting parts and 3 ammo, 3 soda can bombs, 3 ammo, 20 parts, 3 Molotovs, 4 fuel, 60 parts, 2 fuel bombs, 4 fuel, 80 parts, or any one of these mixed with 1 higher tier explosive. So in other words, one is looking anywhere between 70 to 130 crafting parts. For each of the hearts, aside from the soda can bombs and pipe bombs, all the others have crafting yields large enough for 2 or more hearts.
Next up, for both efficient and cost-effective, is the firecracker/flare and bloater gas method. The pathology skill helps with increasing the yield to 4 units. The crafting process takes 6 plague samples, 3 cases of chemicals, 2 units of fuel, and 40 crafting parts. Now, I think the only downside to crafting bloater gas is the cases of chemicals that can only be found, not crafted. But I wouldn't consider this to be an exorbitant amount. But anyway, it only takes 3 units per heart. Without pathology, it only crafts 3, which is still just enough. Now, if one is going to use firecrackers, then it will cost a mere 20 more crafting parts.
The last method I have technically does not have any crafting requirements, but in a practical sense, I would say it is almost a necessity. This is the heavy weapon mixed with scent block method. It is quite cheap in that there are no heavy explosives required, plus it is an efficient method, but it can be dangerous if one is not careful, because Zeds can still sniff you out if they get close enough. However, it's the cost of the optional scent block: 2 units of meds, 20 units of plague samples, unless one has pathology, in which case it is 15, and 3 units of chemicals. So there you guys have it.
So to make sure that the content of today's seminar has sunk in effectively, let's recap. In regards to damage percentages, 50 caliber weapons inflict approximately 6.66666667% to 7.1% damage. The grenade launcher inflicts 8.33333 damage. Heavy weapons with the powerhouse skill and fully charged strikes will eliminate a heart with approximately 7 to 8 strikes. Lastly, flares and bloater gas inflict approximately 45% damage. In regards to the most cost-effective and efficient methods, use of the drone strike and 2 other incendiaries or explosives, 3 bloater gas grenades and a flare, and powerhouse strikes with a heavy weapon and scent block will suffice for a heart.
Now remember guys, not everything stated must be followed to a T. Plus, I recognize that some of you may have your own methods for dealing with hearts. This is just 1 onion's...
2 onions?
This is just 2 onions' opinions, and I'm quite positive others will have their own ideas for taking down hearts quickly and with little or lower expenditures. Otherwise though, that is all this onion.
And this onion.
That is all these onions have to say. Thanks for attending, guys, and I'll see you at our next seminar.
Bye guys, I look forward to your discussion posts.